In 1986, Sweden was a beacon of prosperity and peace, a wealthy nation where crime was rare and trust ran deep. But beneath this calm surface, a storm was brewing. On the night of February 28th, Prime Minister Olof Palme walked side by side with his wife Lisbeth through the chilly streets of Stockholm. Then, out of nowhere, a .357 Magnum cracked through the silence. A single bullet tore through his spine. Lisbeth's scream pierced the cold night as a second shot grazed her arm. The killer vanished into the snowy darkness as chaos erupted on Sveavägen, a busy street in central Stockholm. Bystanders stood frozen, staring at their fallen leader on the icy ground. Sirens screamed. By dawn, candles flickered at Sergels Torg in a silent vigil. This was no ordinary crime. This was Sweden's first political assassination in nearly 2 centuries. History is full of moments like this, strange, tragic, unforgettable. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one. Who wanted Palme dead? Olof Palme was a man of stark contrasts. Born in 1927 into Stockholm's elite, he was expected to follow a path of privilege. But a 1947 stay at Kenyon College in Ohio changed everything. Poverty and racism opened his eyes and radicalized him. Returning to Sweden, he embraced socialism and climbed to lead the Social Democratic Party by 1969. He reshaped Sweden with his vision: universal welfare, women's rights, better education. His speeches burned with passion, his charm drew crowds. Yet at home, he lived simply, with Lisbeth and their 3 sons, refusing heavy security, choosing instead to walk Stockholm's streets like any man. That choice made him vulnerable, a target in plain sight. Palme's battles weren't just at home, they were global. He marched against the Vietnam War, comparing US bombings to Nazi horrors, infuriating Washington. He pushed sanctions against South Africa's apartheid regime, hitting their power base hard. Even the Soviets took heat for their oppression, though his anti-US stance drew darker glares. In Sweden, right-wingers branded him a Soviet puppet, their hate boiling in whispers and pamphlets. Some publications even sold dartboards with a caricature of his face. To workers, he was a hero. To his enemies, a traitor. That night felt so ordinary. Palme spent the day in meetings, focused on Sweden's future. By evening, he wanted a break, a simple date with Lisbeth at the Grand Cinema, watching the brothers Mozart. They laughed, arm in arm, stepping into Sveavägen's chilly glow, shops buzzing around them. At 11:21 p.m., a shadow emerged behind them. A gun exploded in the cold night air. And in that split second, Olof Palme was gone. Sweden would never be the same. Police flooded Sveavägen, grasping for clues. Witnesses described a man in a dark coat, but the trail was cold. For months, leads came and went. Then, a name surfaced: Christer Pettersson, a 39-year-old drifter with a violent past. In 1970, he'd killed a man in a street brawl. Now he was drunk, jobless, seen stumbling near the crime scene. 2 years after the murder, in 1988, Lisbeth faced a lineup. Her hands shook. "That's him," she said, pointing at Pettersson. He was a wreck. In court, he slouched with darting eyes, as prosecutors painted him the lone gunman. Sweden held its breath in 1989 when he was convicted. Sweden finally had the killer. Or so it seemed. But then, it all fell apart. The lineup was far from fair. Police, biased against Pettersson, had already labeled him the alcoholic. A hint that influenced Lisbeth's identification before she even stepped in. There was no gun, no motive, no solid proof. Witnesses contradicted each other. One said the killer was tall, another said short. Pettersson's lawyer claimed he was a scapegoat, a convenient sacrifice to soothe an angry nation. The appeals court overturned his conviction. Pettersson walked free, smirking at the cameras, leaving Sweden stunned. Lisbeth's certainty shattered. The case was cold, yet someone else had been there that night. A man with a story that didn't add up. We'll return to him. But first, let's go back to the crime scene. Police flooded Sveavägen, but chaos took over. Crowds trampled the snow, destroying evidence. Crucial clues were lost. Days later, a shopkeeper, not the police, found the bullets. From the start, the investigation was shaky. Hans Holmér, the lead investigator, ignored witnesses and fixated on the PKK, a Kurdish separatist group Palme had once criticized. He ordered raids, seized documents, found nothing. Other promising leads were dismissed. The investigation dragged on, sprawling out of control. Meanwhile, Holmér seemed to crave the spotlight, posing for cameras, as if the case were solved. But it wasn't. And behind the scenes, something darker stirred. A 1999 report revealed some Swedish officers on the case held far-right views and openly despised Palme. With trust broken, conspiracy theories exploded. Some pointed at the CIA, furious over Palme's support for North Vietnam. Others blamed South African spies, enraged by his sanctions against apartheid. And P2, a NATO-linked secret society, had sent a message: the Swedish tree will be felled. Or so the story goes. There's no proof, no record, just a chilling phrase, whispered ever since. Sweden's own hate ran deep. Right-wingers spread lies that Palme would hand the country to the Soviets. Victor Gunnarsson, a 33-year-old loner, was one of them. He bragged about hating Palme and was seen near the murder scene. Police arrested him days later, but his alibi held. In 1993, he turned up dead in the US, shot execution style in a forest. His girlfriend's ex, a cop, was convicted, but whispers lingered. Was Gunnarsson silenced? Leads went cold. Witnesses stopped talking. The case faded into the background. Over the years, more than 130 people confessed, but none of them fit. For decades, the investigation went in circles. Then, in 2020, came a twist. The man who had inserted himself into the investigation from day one, Stig Engström, a 52-year-old graphic designer at Skandia, a company right by the crime scene. That night, he said he rushed to help Palme. He spoke to media, reenacted the shooting, claimed he tried CPR. But witnesses said otherwise. They saw a nervous man, slipping away into the dark. Engström had military training and knew how to handle guns. He openly hated Palme's politics and often ranted at work. He owned a coat matching witness descriptions and had access to a .357 Magnum. Yet in 1986, police dismissed him. Then in 2020, prosecutors named him Palme's killer. Case closed. Or so they thought. Engström had died in 2000. There was no gun, no DNA, and no trial. Critics say he craved attention, inserting himself to feel important. But others argue, who else had the access, the motive, and the timing? The answer might have died with him. The Palme case remains an open wound. Lisbeth died in 2018. Justice never served. Trust in Sweden's institutions never fully healed. The Palme Group, Sweden's cold case unit, was disbanded in 2020 after naming Stig Engström as the suspect and closing the case. One investigator later admitted the case was mishandled from the start. The files sit in silence, frozen in time. The truth stays buried. Palme's legacy is still felt. His vision, equality, peace, justice inspired a nation. Was it Pettersson, a drunken drifter? Engström, the suspicious figure who inserted himself into the investigation? Or something darker, a conspiracy too big to expose? This mystery has lasted for 39 years. Every clue, Pedersen's smirk, the suspect who returned to the crime scene, that alleged P2 telegram, pulls you deeper. And the truth still hides in the snow. What's your thoughts?